Hey guys, Victor here, coming at you with another deck profile, and for today's video we'll be doing an updated Danger Dark Road list, where the ultimate goal of this deck, as always, is to basically just loop away our opponent's entire hand, and then once that's accomplished, we're going to be able to build up a board that no matter what they top deck, they're just not going to be able to break it, right? Because they're not going to have any cards in their hand, they won't have any cards in their field, they'll only have the one card that they draw, and that's it. So with that out of the way, let's jump right into it. As always, we're going to be starting off with the monster lineup first, and the first card we're going to be playing is, of course, 3 Genta Gateman of Dark World. You discard it to add the Gates of Dark World from your deck to your hand, and then from there you basically just get your entire engine rolling. So yeah, no reason not to play 3. This is basically one of the cards that you always want in your opening hand. So yeah, 3 Genta, then to accompany that, we're playing our 3 Reign-beaux Overking of Dark World. You discard it to search your deck for any level 5 or higher Dark World monster except itself, so you get to add your Sillva or your grapha. We don't play the other guys. They're not needed for this deck. And more importantly than that though, this is also the one that allows you to bounce back your resources, right? As you can pretty much bounce back any Dark World monster that's face up on your side of the field as long as it is level 7 or lower. So you can bounce back again to after it comes back. You can bounce back Snowws if they're on your field for whatever reason. You can bounce back your Sillva, which is pretty important just to be able to like refresh it and then continuously discard it to add more bodies to the field. But yeah, 3 Reign-beaux, pretty solid. And then for the final 3 of, it's always going to be Snoww, Unlight of Dark World, as when you discard it, you get to search your deck for any Dark World card. That's it for the 3 ofs, and then for the 2 ofs, we're playing our 2 Grapha Dragon Lord of Dark World. Now, the discard effect doesn't really matter too much because it just pops a card on the field, but that does allow us to clean up the board a little bit more nicely, especially because there are certain times where you just want to get rid of a card like Ceruli, right? Just to ensure that your opponent has absolutely no chance of coming back. But more importantly than that, much like Reign-beaux, this card also bounces back your face-up Dark World monsters. However, it doesn't share the same restriction of level 7 or lower. Instead, it just can't bounce itself. So you just can't go grapha for grapha, but being able to add back literally every other Dark World monster is pretty good. Then, for the other 2 of, we're playing 2 Sillva, Warlord of Dark World. Now, because this is the hand loop version, we are going to be playing 2, just so that we can have a little bit more insurance, because if we end up losing this card to like a Bestial or a Crow, the deck just doesn't function. I mean, you can still make a pretty impressive board that your opponent will struggle to break through, but we want a hand loop, right? So just for that little extra bit of insurance, we play the second one. And then the card that allows us to hand loop our opponent is, of course, Ceruli, Guru of Dark World. You discard it, its effect activates in the graveyard, you give it to your opponent, and then its effect activates on their side of the field to make you discard a card. So you get both Sillva effects to be able to summon itself and loop your opponent for 2 cards. So with that, that's the Dark World lineup. And then for the other cards that we're playing, so I have decided to include the 3 tour guide from the Underworld and the 2 Buio the Dawn's Light, which is something that I showcased in the other deck profile for the Fiendsmith Dark World list. But if I'm being honest, I think I still very much prefer Gen and Ken, just because I feel like if you're gonna go into the degenerate aspect, you might as well lean all the way into it, right? And Ken and Gen pretty much facilitate that philosophy pretty flawlessly. But even so, they still do really cool things in this deck, and they make it so that even if you aren't able to like fully resolve your hand loop, you can still just like normal summon tour guide, summon the Buio, and then you can still do a lot of other cool plays that allow you to just build pretty impressive boards regardless, right? So yeah, it's a pretty fine engine. I really enjoy it, but like I said, I probably prefer Ken and Gen, at least in this version. In the Fiendsmith Dark World list, this one wins hands down, but for this one, it's pretty give or take. Like sometimes it's amazing, sometimes it's not that great, but it's fine. Then that's it for that. And for the danger monsters, it is a little bit reduced compared to how I normally play it, but you can still feel the impact. And as a result, we're playing our 2 Danger Nessie to search out danger monsters, 2 Danger Tsuchinoko to summon itself no matter what, 2 Danger Jackalope to either summon itself or summon a danger monster from the deck, 1 Danger Bigfoot. We don't really care about the pop effect, we basically just care because it's a level 8 monster that we can summon. And then lastly, 1 Danger Mothman, which is basically just Dark World dealings, but as a monster. And admittedly, like the effect is obviously really good, right? You get to draw a card and you get to discard a card, but there's a reason no one plays Dark World dealings anymore, and that's because you're just giving your opponent an extra card to potentially just deal with your board before it even becomes a problem. So try not to rely on this too much because it probably will come back to haunt you. And then for the final monster, we're just playing the 1 Zalamander Catalyzer as like another pseudo danger monster, because you just reveal this and then another fiend monster, and then you get to discard one and special the other. And with that, that's the monster lineup, and now we can finally move on to the spell and trap portion. Now that we're on the spell and trap lineup, we're of course going to be starting off with 3 the Gates of Darkworld. Everyone always says to play 2, but I just can't agree with that. This is the consistency card, right? All you have to have is a fiend monster in the graveyard, which is not at all difficult to do. Then you get to discard your fiends, draw cards, trigger your Darkworld cards that you discarded. Like, this card just does everything. I guess you could like justify playing 2 if you include something like Zephyros, but I don't know, man. It's just, I'd rather just play the 3rd Gates at that point. So yeah, 3 Gates, perfectly fine. That's it for the 3 elves though. And then for the 2 elves, we're playing 2 Allure of Darkness just for that little extra bit of draw power. And even though the danger lineup is a little bit diminished compared to how I normally play it, 2 Allure is still perfectly fine. And even if to banish a Darkworld monster, it's honestly great too, as you don't really need to resolve that many of them all at once, right? And as long as you're not banishing cards like Ceruli or Sillva, and maybe even like grapha, like you should be fine in most situations. So yeah, 2 Allure, perfectly fine. If you want to play 3, by all means go for it. I opted to go for 2 for this specific version. And then for the 1 ofs, we're playing 1 Darkworld Accession to be able to access our Fusion Grapha, 1 Called by the Grave so that we can beat up Drone Lockbrew whenever it gets dropped on us, 1 Triple Tactics Thrust, just to be able to finish off our opponent with the final hand rip, as what it will be searching is typically your Triple Tactics talent, and you're pretty much going to be able to activate this every single time just because you're giving your opponent the ceruli, right? And if you're playing Gin and Ken, even more so. But yeah, it gets the talent, and then the talent rips away the last card. Or it can also search out cards like Dark Corridor, which is a normal spell that just adds a Dark World card and discards a card, which, you know, pretty much means that you can do whatever you want with your Dark World engine. 1 card destruction as our auto win button. And then lastly, we're playing the 1 Mutiny in the Sky, which is what we're going to be able to search off of our Buio whenever we send it to the graveyard. And this one just allows us to basically like recycle our resources. But not only that, it gives us opportunities to be able to fusion summon more cards than we normally would be able to. And even something like Grapha, right, which you normally would only be able to summon off of your Darkworld Accession, wherever it is, there, can be brought out thanks to Mutiny in the Sky. So you know, just like the amount of plays that this card opens up is honestly just great. So that's why I really like the engine, even though, like I said, I still think Ken and Yin is slightly better in this specific variant. But with that, that's the spell lineup. We don't play any traps because it's Darkworld. It's an all-in type of deck. And we can finally move on to the extra deck with that. Now that we're finally on the extra deck portion of the video, the first card we're going to be talking about is number 62 Dugares the Timeless, who has 3 pretty solid effects, but we only care about 1 of them. And I can tell you right now, we don't care about the summon effect, we don't care about the boost effect, but we do care about the draw 2 discard effect. Because this is a Darkworld deck, we want to draw as many cards as possible, and we always want to discard. Now, you don't always have to make this, but it's just like another nice card there that lets us be a little bit more resilient to any potential hand traps that our opponent will drop on us. Next, we're playing the 1 Coach King Giantrainer, which it is technically a consistency card, right? You detach a material, you draw 1, but more importantly, it also burns. So with the current time rules, this is pretty much going to be like your win condition, and it's probably going to come up more often than not just because this deck takes so long to play. So you just want to have something like this in the extra just to be able to potentially just steal a game. And then lastly, we're just playing the 1 Super Starslayer's ty-Phon Sky Crisis because there are just some boards that you can't break. So as a last-ditch effort, you can make this. It probably won't work, but you never know, right? Maybe it will. That's it for the Exceeds, though. And then for the links, first card, Muckraker from the Underworld. You get to reborn a fiend and discard a card. And it discards for effect too, so that means it will be able to trigger all your Darkworld monsters. However, you have to be a little bit more careful with this because it does lock you into fiends for the rest of the turn, and you also can't link with the turn that it's summoned. So there are a couple of restrictions that make this card a little bit more on the wonky side, I guess, if you want to call it that, where you don't really want to rely on it too much, but it's still nice to have just in case. And then we're also playing 1 Dharc the Dark Charmer Gloomy. So instead of bringing back monsters from our graveyard, we're going to be using this card to bring back monsters from our opponent's graveyard. And dark monsters are still everywhere for the most part, so it's not like this card is the most difficult thing to pull off. Next, we have the cards that allow us to bounce our ceruli, and to a lesser extent our Sillva, being the Security Dragon, as well as the Akashic Magician. So yeah, that's basically all they do. They don't really have much of a purpose outside of that. Sometimes you can use them to like disrupt your opponent's field whenever you're going second or whatever, but it's literally just there to be able to bounce back our ceruli and our Sillva. Then after that, we're playing IP Masquerena, who is pretty much always going to go into the SP Little Knight, but depending on the situation, you can also go into a Nightmare Unicorn, depending on if you just don't want to banish a monster because say you're playing against Malice, right? and they summon like a link 3, you can SP Little Knight it, but then it'll just come right back and they'll get the secondary effects. So I just opted to go with Unicorn to be able to spin those cards back to make sure that they stay in the extra deck. However, this one can also be replaced with cards like Nightmare Phoenix if you just value destroying back row a lot more, or Nightmare Cerberus if you just want to be able to destroy special summon monsters. I just felt with Nightmare Unicorn was like a little bit safer compared to the others. And while this card does discard, it discards for cost, so it will not trigger your cards. And then for the final Link monster, we are of course going to be playing the one Saryuja Skuldred, which is one of my personal favorites in this deck just because we're constantly flooding the field with so many different types of monsters that being able to make this and then draw 4 and then fix our hands and put in the back cards at the bottom is a really simple task in most situations. So yeah, and then we're also using the effect of special summon from our hand as well, just to be able to continue to link climb or bring back resources. Like say you have a Snoww or a Sillva in your hand that you can't discard, right? But you have a grapha and a Reign-beaux in the graveyard, you can special summon, let's say the Snoww, and then you can bounce it back with the Reign-beaux and then bounce back the Reign-beaux with the grapha. So yeah, this card has like a lot of really cool uses. That's it for the links though. And then for the fusions, we have the one Aerial Leader, which allows us to foolish any of our cards, or at least any of our monsters, being the main target is pretty much just always going to be grapha or Reign-beaux depending on what we're needing. And we don't really care about the banish 2 effect to come back unless we're going for game. We literally only care about foolishing cards like our grapha or our Reign-beaux. Then we also have the one Duke of Demise, which gives us another additional normal summon, which can come up sometimes. But more importantly than that, this card also has a graveyard effect where you can just banish it and then you can add any level 4 or higher fiend or zombie monster from your graveyard to your hand. So this one also allows us to just recycle pretty much our entire Dark World engine, right? You can add back your Gentas, you can add back your Snowws, you can add back your Graphas, your Reign-beaux, whatever. This card, just like the resources that it provides us with, is pretty cool. And then we have one Loose the Dust Dharc, which admittedly of the 3 new fusions included into the extra is probably the weakest, just because it's a 3500 body that when it's on the field, monsters in your most left and your most right zones can't be destroyed by card effects, which can be a little bit tricky for your opponent to deal with in some situations, but it's not like it's the end-all be-all of cards that just can't be outed, right? But you know, it's perfectly fine. The only thing is that it takes 3 fiends and or fairy monsters, so it's a little bit of a heftier cost to pay to be able to summon that guy out. And then lastly, we have one Grapha Dragon Overlord of Dark Worlds, just so that we can have our, I guess, our Omni Negate, kind of, but not really, because it just changes the effects of normal spells, normal traps and monsters to discard a card. So it's a very strong disruption, but it's not like a real negate that'll guarantee that your board can't be cracked. And with that, that's the Danger Dark World deck. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!